welcome back to Open Your Eyes. If you're joining us now, we are going to be talking about World Mental Health Day. And joining us for this discussion now is Miss Elizabeth Ross, who is from the Caregiver support group. We have Joyce Ellis, who is a administrator from the Welcome Resource Center, and also Ms. Barbara Guzman, also from the Caregiver support group. Good morning, ladies, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Good morning.
So, this year's theme for World Mental Health Day is working together to prevent suicide. I suppose we can start our discussion talking about the theme and, what it is, why this is the focus of this year's World Mental Health Day. Yeah. Anyone can start.
The theme has been used last year because suicide is just so prevalent across the world. We're using it this year and we will use it next year also. That's how important it is to mental health, suicide. Along with that, we have a speech competition, and that's for young people who will be presenting on bullying and also sexual orientations and other topics. That's just a few. Besides the young people, it's not to say that young people are the ones committing suicide, it's in general, but we want to focus on young people for now, but we also have programs for elderly people and seniors.
Yeah. So, and that's kind of our focus this morning. I think when we think of mental health, we talk of some of the more prevalent ones. We talk of depression, we talk of anxiety, and we talk of how it specifically affects young people. But today, especially the group that's here this morning, we're looking at the elderly population and we're looking at some of the issues there. Let me start off with the Caregiver support program and talk about, you are a newly formed group, why you got started and what your purpose is.
Okay, what happened, Marlene, it was a group of us saw the need to be facilitators or to provide support. In seeking out help for ourselves, I know personally I was seeking out help for myself with my loved one. I was speaking to our parish priest, and so he said, you know something? He said there are quite a number of people out there from our parish who have been speaking about this issue. And so maybe what we could do is get together as a group and form a support group. And so I said, that's a good idea. He said, okay, let's put something together. And so that was how our core group was formed. A group of us got together and started talking about it. What we really are facilitators to provide information, because we don't know. There are people out there, we need to pull the resources together to give information to our parishioners, and not only our parishioners, to whoever is interested at large. There are a lot of people out there who are caregivers, who have issues dealing with the whole caregiving, the whole matter of caregiving. And so when we come together, we thought that if we put the group together and we have people come in to talk about their feelings and what's happening and facilitate and provide the support group, then it would be better for everybody on a whole. So that is where we started.
And talk to us about the issue of Alzheimer's itself and just, I mean, what existed and...
Well, there's Alzheimer's, there is an Alzheimer's Association. But we're dealing with all dementia. And which includes Alzheimer's. So we're full broad dementia. And there's many different kinds of dementia that affect in different ways. So there is the Alzheimer's Association, which is a small group, but there was really no support group for the caregivers that would allow them a safe haven, that would provide education, but primarily offer a safe haven and a place to come and discuss your feelings and open up. And the suicide rate amongst caregivers is not as high as a lot of other areas, but it is high. And because of the depression, because it's called caregivers depression, you know, it can result in other things. But it's having a safe haven and having a place to come to allow people to express their feelings and share stories and things, I think is going to be very beneficial.
When it comes to dementia, there is a lot of focus on taking care of the caretaker, the person who is administering the care. Can you explain to us why that is so necessary? What are the unique challenges that a caretaker experiences?
There are a lot of times you don't take care of yourself. And so it is important for caregivers to be aware that while you want to give your loved one the optimal care, you need also to take care of yourself. And if you're not in a good position, you're not able to give the love and the care that your loved one needs. And so the first person to take care of is yourself, so that you can be in a good position to take care of your loved one. And that includes taking time for yourself. It means doing things that you still love to do. It means being open with your other family members to tell them that, you know what, I can't do this alone. We have to do this together. You need to be a partner with me. Or calling on friends, calling and using a support group. Finding someone whom you can talk to. Taking care of yourself does not necessarily mean just being selfish about it. You're not being selfish. You're looking after your own mental health and your physical health at the same time, so that you're able to provide care for your loved one.
But it's also really important that that's the last thing on a caregiver's thought. You know, they're dancing as fast as they can to take care of the person that they're taking care of. It's really, really easy to forget yourself. And I speak from experience. And, you know, I'll do this tomorrow, I'll do this tomorrow, I'll do this tomorrow. And one of the things that we're going to stress in this support group is that you have to mandate time to take care of yourself and not say, you know, well, tomorrow I'll do it, because it's very, very easy to put yourself at the very bottom, particularly if you've got kids and you've got other family members and things going on. So.
And I'd imagine how it emotionally drains you as well, just the progression of dementia itself.
Well, one of the things that people that haven't been through the dementia experience that they don't realize is you lose your loved one twice. You lose them when they get into an advanced state of dementia, and then you lose them when they die. So you're going through grief constantly while they have dementia, and then the grief that you deal with after they pass away. So you lose them twice.
That can be, you know, particularly difficult considering, you know, from the caregiver's perspective that, you know, you were speaking about the progression of dementia. I mean, for a lot of people who have family members they're living in, so they experience this around the clock, you know, so having access to these sorts of resources seems particularly important, especially in light of the fact that, as we've discussed, people do tend to forget themselves. So this initiative is extremely important in these times.
And that's why it's so important to get help. Help is so important. And help does not necessarily mean that something is wrong with you. People have to accept that nothing is wrong with you to reach out for help, because you cannot do it alone. You are faced with your loved one not being the same person that you know. And that in itself, like Liz said, is something that is difficult to deal with. It's a challenge. You are used to, when you have someone in your life who was like maybe your champion or your hero, and that person is no longer there, you need to understand the disease to know that the person is not there because they don't want to be there. It's the disease, it's a sickness. And how to deal with that sickness is what is important, and that is where we come in. We provide the support and the information for people to know how to deal with it.
You know, I think part of the bigger issue here too is looking at the establishment of a support group for what is a group of people who are facing similar challenges. And I wanted to bring that over. We have Miss Kathy who's joined us now. She is the past president and a representative of the Mental Health Association. And Miss Kathy, we know that there are many people who struggle with many different forms of mental illness. and they just have nowhere to turn to and nowhere to, well, they feel that way.
Yeah.
Talk to me about even just having things like support groups for caregivers, maybe a need to establish the same with people who are battling anxiety or depression or bullying or, go ahead.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
Apologize, I got my times mixed up.
Yeah.
Because I must be going into the early stages. Yeah, I think there are actually sources of help.
Yeah.
One of the problems is that because of stigma and discrimination, sometimes people don't know where to turn or feel embarrassed to turn to the sources. So, for instance, there are, in most districts, there are support groups for people with diagnosed mental health issues. They're called consumer groups. And so these are people who get together and meet and discuss and have fun together, not dementia, but other forms of mental illness. But a lot of people either don't know about it or their families don't want them to reach out because it's a family secret. And of course everybody knows already, so I don't know what secret people are keeping. So one of the things we try and do, the Mental Health Association is only an advocacy group. In other words, we don't provide treatment, but we do try to guide people to what help is available. And the other thing we try very hard to work on is to reduce stigma and discrimination.
And that brings up something important in terms of guiding people towards the appropriate resources, because you had spoken earlier about people who had diagnosed disorders, when it's the case that a lot of people are living with things that are undiagnosed.
Absolutely.
And just trying to live day to day as best they can, not knowing that there's access there that they can improve their quality of life.
Well, that's exactly, and that's where advocacy comes in, because if you don't talk about a problem, you can't begin to deal with it. And at this point, there's still a lot of people who don't feel comfortable talking about the problem. More people are doing so, and we really applaud them. For instance, the theme for World Mental Health Day this year is suicide prevention. And the Michael Young family has graciously agreed to be our patrons for the annual banquet. And we decided not to have them speak on it, but to do a video of them speaking, because it's very hard to get up and maybe you get choked up. But our focus for this time is, let's focus a little on the survivors, because for every suicide and every suicide attempt, there are maybe 10, 15 survivors who have to deal with the very complex feelings, loss, grief, anger, regret, all of these feelings. So they have very graciously and very bravely agreed to share their experiences. We have, this afternoon, we have the school speech competition, where we have students who give a speech, and it's always related to the theme. So since the theme this year is suicide prevention, they're going to talk about the triggers and the preventions in various aspects, bullying, sexual orientation, but it's geared to young people. And it's going to be live streamed. Apparently, Digi has just agreed to it. So again, we're trying to get out the message. Last year, Miss Nalita Castillo was our patron, and she spoke very openly about her battles with anxiety and depression. And so we really applaud these people who are in the vanguard. who are willing to say, we're going to show a little video of Sahar Vasquez, who is a young person who has, again, been very open with her struggles, because we feel that young people obviously relate better to young people. Yeah. So I agree, a lot of people don't even know that they need help or that there is help. So yes, we have to educate and we have to advocate.
You know, it's so important that we hear stories of people who are living with mental illness. Because one, I think as Gavin clearly pointed out, there's so many people who are undiagnosed, who are struggling, and they can have a much better quality of life if they're diagnosed, if maybe they have medication or go through therapy or learn
get
tools.
Support.
Yeah.
Because with many, like anxiety and depression, sometimes, yes, medication helps bump you into a spot, but basically it's human connection that is going to help you. You might need medication because you're not in a position to be able, but in the long run, it has to be human connections. And that's one of the things that maybe our modern society, we've invented all kinds of other things, but I think when it comes to human connections, we're probably not doing that well.
Yeah. You know, if I think of the level of stigma that is associated with mental illness, we talk about it a lot more openly now, and we're more precise in our wordings to say what it is, what it isn't, that everyone has mental health, that everyone can have a mental health problem, and you know, that it is an illness in your mind. So, but yet we still see people who, once they have perhaps accepted or been diagnosed, still struggle within society in gaining employment, in perhaps social interactions. And we still have outsiders who look on and they don't know how to interact with someone with, if it's dementia, if it's someone who's schizophrenic, if it's someone who has anxiety, they don't know how to interact. And so the divide still exists. Coming from an advocacy group, and even in your experience, what do you think are some of the inroads that we have made and can continue to make to kind of break down that divide?
Well, talking helps. Education helps. I can't see, and of course support groups, but support groups only work if people can reach out and become a member of them. So we don't only need to educate the general public, but for instance, we need to educate employers. Just like there was a push to employ physically challenged people, we have to maybe help employers know how they can employ people with mental health diagnoses or issues. But do they need, just like if you're going to employ someone who's physically challenged, you might need to put in ramps and other things. Are there some mental ramps that you need to put in if you're going to be able to employ people with other kinds of challenges?
Listening to Ms. Cathy speak, what came to mind was a couple of weeks ago, I was in Chatamal, and what was fascinating was in some of the stores, you see that the elderly are the people who are bagging the groceries. There were no young people per se there. There were people, senior citizens, who were doing all that work. And I said, man, I wish we could adopt this, because there are use for our elderly people. And they could be incorporated into our society, and to give them something for them to feel worthwhile, no? But talking from a perspective of persons with dementia, I think inclusion, and also, like Ms. Cathy said, education. Education is very, very, very key and important. Education for the society and the population on a whole, And for persons, more so for the caregivers, people who have to live with it day to day to day.
Yeah.
It is a challenge, and it is difficult. It's not easy because you wake up and you have no choice. You are faced with it. You have to deal with it, and for you to deal with it, for you to be your best self, for your own self, and for the person, is to get help, to get the information, know what you're dealing with, and if you know what you're dealing with, then you're better able to provide the caregiving that you need to give.
Yeah. So I want to bring Joyce into the conversation because Joyce, you work with the Welcome Resource Center, which is one of the initiatives that came out through the Mental Health Association. And what you provide there is a very necessary service. I think people have become accustomed to know it as serving the homeless population, but it's also for people who are mentally ill.
Yeah. And also we have elderly there also.
Yeah.
And what we notice based on the elderly, if we give them things to do, it helps to keep them active. And we have at least like 30 that are over 65. So
yeah.
they're not regular, they don't come regular, but they come and they interact with each other. Yeah. And they would be able to discuss what is going on with them and things like that. But in terms of support, the center provides social support for all the individual who comes to the center. Yeah. And that interaction also, which is very much important than to have them at home sitting alone and things like that.
Yeah. And in your experience, what do you think makes the biggest difference in terms of like improving the quality of lives of the people that you work with?
With my experience, having them doing things for themselves, like people don't do things for them. Like the only thing we do is serve the food. The other things they do for themselves, the one who need a little help, we will help them, and we wait until they ask for it. So we see a situation, we don't rush there to go and help them. We wait until they ask for the help, because sometimes it's a bit challenging to go from the hall to the restroom, but some of them try it on their own, and when they ask for the help, then we give it to them. Yeah. So we're not there to assist them readily, because you see them in a crisis. We allow them to problem solve, figure it out, and they get it done. The ones who can't, then we do that little bit of assistance. When I say we, it includes participants also, because they also look out for each other.
Yeah. You know, I don't know what it is globally, but perhaps you can paint the picture as to what it is locally, the link between mental illness and homelessness.
Yeah, well, that's why we say it's the Welcome Center is a resource for the homeless, mentally ill, and we include substance abuse. Yeah. And very often people are 1, 2, 3 of the above. Yeah. And sometimes homelessness is not complete homelessness. Yeah. They might have a room at the bottom of a family house. Or, you know, so it doesn't necessarily mean actually sleeping out on the street. But homelessness is, you might have a place to sleep, but you don't have a home. And so there's a mixed group. We also have some participants who actually do have a home, but their family encourages them to come, as Joyce says, because they interact with people and they have some kind of a quality of life that they wouldn't get. So there is a very strong, we also have, Joyce would know this, we have quite a few deportees who have been deported back to a country they left when they were 2 years old. They have no family here. And so those in some ways are kind of the easiest people to help, because many of them, after a little bit of stabilization, can then go on, get a job, and actually have a home. Yeah. So homelessness has just so many meanings, and so many reasons behind it. Some of it is economic, but most of it is not purely economic. And that's why out of the over 400 people who are registered, 80% are men. Now, we don't mean we have 400 people coming every day, but they come and go as they want. Why? Because for whatever reason, and we try not to be judgmental and blame, we're just saying this is the situation. Many men have not formed strong family bonds, and whereas many women have been caretakers all their lives, so that when they need care, there's someone to take care of them. Many men really feel very alone, because when they need care, they don't have those bonds there.
Wow.
And then we also talk a lot about, addressing, when we come to address that sort of situation, that, in terms of, society and culture, we often socialize men to sort of ignore their feelings, not speak about it, so that if and when they do experience mental health issues, they don't access or try to find help, reach out to people, just because there is that stigma.
Yeah, even with physical, women are much more likely to come into contact with the health system because of our biology. Whereas men often only come into contact when they chop their hand. It's only when they have a serious accident that they actually come into contact with the health. So it's mental and physical. So again, there's education that we need to widen the net. I think a lot of men as well, because they're assumed to be the breadwinner, if they can't win the bread, sometimes that is what causes them to abandon the family, because they're failing at what they see as their main task. So, as I say, we're not assigning blame, we're just saying this is the way it is.
And, I think when you think of men especially, they're also more vulnerable for suicide. And so I think with
not
completed suicide.
Completed, and that's partly again because of the methods that they use. Men tend to use methods that there's no going back from. And so, yes, there's more attempted suicides in women, but more completed suicides in men.
And I think it's a good time for us to kind of be able to explain that further, because I think in the public sphere, we say suicide as completed only. And it's important to understand that there is a differentiation that's made, and why we see more men completing. So let's talk about the situation of suicide, because we don't report it in the news, so people don't always know how often it happens and who's at risk.
You've got to be a bit careful about reporting as well. So because occasionally reporting suicide in the wrong way does see an uptick. And we have to look, and we have to recognize that people don't attempt suicide in order to die. They attempt suicide to try and alleviate the pain of living. And there is a difference. And one of the biggest indicators for a future suicide attempt is a past suicide attempt. And so the people who are most vulnerable are people who have already attempted suicide. And one of the problems is that we don't want to talk about it. And so sometimes we don't do what is necessary. We see someone in trouble, but we think if we ask them, that might encourage them. And in fact, no, you don't want to say hey, do you want to commit suicide? No, but you need to say, how are you feeling? Are you feeling unhappy? Is there anything that you need to do? Have you thought of harming yourself in it. And having that conversation doesn't encourage. It means that people can talk out their issues and maybe think, I'll give it one more try. So suicide is very, very complex, and there are so many reasons for it. But essentially it's not because people want to die, it's because the pain of living just becomes unbearable.
And in Belize, how serious is the problem?
Well, I'm not Ministry of Health, so I don't have the numbers. It's not, I mean, Belize is not a country with the highest suicide rate. It's like median level in terms of international norms. And it can be very serious. And as I said before, for every attempt and every completion, that one person, there's a ripple effect of all the other people, because also having a member of your family who has committed suicide also increases the likelihood that you will attempt suicide. So we do need to look at survivors, because the person who's gone, they've gone. Let's grieve for them, whatever, but they've gone. But there's 15 or 20 people who need our help, who need to be able to work through their feelings and get the help they need.
Yeah. And so you have conversations that take place, I think, around this time, where people start to say we need to pay attention to the signs of suicide. But what I hear from you is that it's beyond that. It's looking at mental health before there are signs of suicide. Yeah. What we're going to do right now actually is take a quick break, and when we come back we are going to continue to focus on mental health issues in Belize, some of the work that's taking place, and some of the activities that are coming up that you can participate in. So please stay tuned.
For over 20 years, Great Belize Television, Channel 5, has been the leader in award-winning local programming. We have also produced some of the best video commercials, documentaries, and live events for clients countrywide. And we continue to offer high-quality production services to maximize your advertising needs for your business or organization. From concept to completion, let us help you achieve your marketing goal by producing your commercial, documentary, graphic animation, live event, or even designing your website. Using state-of-the-art equipment and experienced personnel, we can make your ideas come alive. For more information, come see us on Coney Drive or give us a call at 223-0146 or 223-7781 or email us at gbtv@btl.net. Great Belize Productions, making great television in Belize.
We are back and we're continuing our conversation. Today is World Mental Health Day, and we are having a broad conversation about mental health in Belize, some of the issues and some of the ongoing programs to offer support. Once again, if you're just joining us, we're joined by two representatives of the Dementia Caregivers Support Group. We have Elizabeth Ross and Bridget Guzman. And we have from the Mental Health Association, Kathy Esquivel and Joyce Ellis of the Welcome Resource Center. Ladies, we were in the midst of the conversation talking about suicide, and that is the theme for this year's World Mental Health Day. But I find that when we talk about mental health in Belize, there's so many aspects. And in the break time, we were talking about some of the population that you serve, but even more importantly, some of the people that you employ. And you've taken on persons who are diagnosed with mental illness, on treatment, and fully functioning in your workplace. I want you to share that experience, Joyce, because I think that can do wonders for other people out there who want to work but are fearful or just can't get employed.
At present, at the center, we have an individual who is working. He is a diagnosed mental person, and he works with us. And for us, he is just like anyone else on staff. He has his TOR, he works with it. From time to time, we make checks on him, but he's been treated the same way we treat all the staff members.
Yeah.
No special treatment, and he functions well.
Yeah, yeah. Kathy, how important is it that we can have this kind of inclusive environment?
It's important, and like most important things, it's difficult. So as I said, you can't just tell employers you need to employ people. You have to find ways of helping them to employ people with special needs, either physical or emotional. And so I think that that's something that maybe needs a lot of input to decide what is the best way to go. And as usual, you don't have to invent the wheel. You can look outside and you can see what has worked. Now, what works in one place won't necessarily work in Belize, but you can maybe adapt it. So maybe that should be one of the next pushes that the Mental Health Association decides to advocate for. How can we help employers who want to help, but actually it would be more detrimental for them just to say, oh yeah, I'm going to employ this person, without knowing what special needs they need to, because then when it doesn't work out, they've been burnt once, they won't be burnt again. So yes, employers, we would like you to consider it, but let's work out how other outside forces can help you to do it in the best possible way. Because, you know, we've all heard about, well, especially in the States, they call it going postal. You have an employee who has tremendous emotional and mental health issues that you finally need to terminate because they're destroying the workplace, and they come back with a gun and shoot people. And I don't know why it seemed to be more in the postal service, but they actually call it going postal. So I'm not suggesting that that will happen. I'm just saying, when you are looking at these issues, you have to be holistic. I don't have the answers. I think we need to look for the answers.
Well, we need to discuss the issue, and that's a part of what it is. And we don't like talking about mental health issues.
Unless it's in a derogatory sense.
And my assumption is that the younger generation, because of their level of exposure, that they're perhaps more open to discussing issues around mental health. But they have to function in a society where, you know, employers, teachers, school administration, they're not in the same place. So what are some of the moves that are being made, whether through the churches, the Mental Health Association, some of the on-the-ground organizations, to get us more comfortable talking about mental health and mental health issues? Who wants to join in?
For us at the Resource Center, some of the things that we do, for example, with families, when we do our intake, we ask the participant about family, and they would say, yes, I do have family members, and we ask for contact number. Sometimes it's difficult because when you call them and you just call participant X name, oh, I don't want to hear about he or she, and things like that. But the person I am, I don't give up. I keep calling, oh, he's here today or she's here today. And so eventually the individual would come around and like, I want to come, but I don't want to know that today, and I don't want people to know that he's my brother or my sister or father and things like that. So the awareness is important in terms of changing the mindset to have this conversation about mental illness. Now, in young people now, we have like 3 young persons at the center. They are more open. They are willing to talk about it. Whenever there is a function, could my mommy come? And I would say, yes, she could come. Yes, bring them along, because we want them to see them in their true element. And so with us at the center, we, although we are not the advocacy group, but we also aid in getting them realize that, you know what, you're not alone. This thing is not a taboo.
Yeah. Now, with the patients, with the participants at the center, those who do have a mental illness, you facilitate them with their care?
Yes, what we do, we usually chart when they get their medication.
Okay.
So if they get their medication, it's written down, and we ask the PNPs that once they give it, you just give them a little paper, cut off piece, write it. He has gotten his medication today. They bring it, they give it to us, and we put it on our calendar. And they will tell us, Miss, my medication due.
Yeah.
And then we could call, and either 2 things happen. They come and they pick them up, or the participant would go to where they could get the shots.
Because the Ministry of Health provides that.
Yes, they provide
Absolutely.
that.
And we do work closely with Ministry of Health, but the Resource Center is not a medical center.
Yes.
It's social support, because we think the Ministry of Health, given the constraints, they actually, the community mental health program, we think is very well planned. Not everything always goes as it should, but we really like that method. But it's no good just giving people medication if they don't have a hot meal. And so we're there to provide that social support that people need, the food, the hygiene, but also just the company.
And well, that's a good holistic approach, I suppose, that you do, because it also not only focuses on the individual who may be going through, but also includes the caregivers as well, because they're experiencing a lot on their own time, and it can be because they don't have access to a lot of these resources. So, in that regard, do you find that in the work, perhaps that caregivers, in your experience, have been open to these types of programs and finding resources like this?
No. I think they're very hesitant. And I think one of the reasons is when you're caring for someone with dementia, you yourself are going through so many different emotional waves, and you think things that you don't really want to think, or you feel things that you feel bad about feeling. So they are uncomfortable to share that. And part of what the support group is going to do is to let them know it's okay to have those feelings, and you're going to have these feelings. Let us show you different ways to deal with these feelings instead of just trying to hide them. And when I keep saying that we provide a safe haven, we provide a place for them to come and express those feelings and open up, and then say, then talk amongst the group and say, well, I had that same feeling and this is what I did, or, and share and try to find a way to help them acclimate and understand it's okay to be mad, it's okay to be angry. What you do with those feelings is what's important. And so I think they've been very slow in coming out to share those things, but I'm hoping that, over the course of the next few months, we can show people that there is a safe haven and a place that you can come do this.
Yeah. So you started your support group last month, and it's
2 weeks ago.
Yeah, 2 weeks ago. How has it been going so far in the people who've come out and how they've benefited from it?
It's interesting because we were a bit anxious. We were wondering if people would come out, because On a whole, in Belize, people don't like to talk about feelings.
Oh, yeah.
It is something that you always keep bottled up. And I can speak for myself from that perspective. But when the group started, we talked amongst ourselves, the core group met and we said, you know what, if we have to, we're going, because we had a guest speaker. Well, like I said before, we facilitate. And so we wouldn't want our guest speaker to show up and then we don't have anybody there. And so Liz said, I'm going to bring my family. I said, I'm going to send my friends and the other. So we thought that we were going to end up with only family members. But it was good to see that. And it's not necessarily because it is founded through our parish. It's not only persons from the parish that came, which is good. It's a good start. And so our second week is today. And so we have tonight, this evening at 6 from 6 till 7, right? Yeah. And we have another, we're facilitating another group. We're going to talk about the family dynamics, how to deal with the family in such issues, because the caregiver needs to call in the family and get everybody involved. And so knowing how to do it in a loving way would make it easier for everybody to want to participate, every member of the family. And we're going to give information. The person is going to speak about how to do that, how to deal with that, how to have the people, the participants, address their feelings, their concerns, matters of their loved ones in a loving and practical way. And the support has been good so far.
Yeah. And, you know, what you're trying to offer is giving caregivers an opportunity to understand the process that they're going to go through. And this is personal for both of you, right?
It is indeed. For myself, I do have a loved one, and that is why I sought help. Because I was battling with, oh my, is this really real? Is this something that you wonder if, because there are good days and there are days that are not so good for the person. And so one day you talk with your loved one and they're in a good place, and another day it's like they're distant away from you. And so it is hard because you begin to think to yourself, something is wrong. Is it me? Or is it something wrong with loved one? And when the person becomes diagnosed, you realize, okay, it's an illness indeed. But then you battle inside yourself with feeling the loss of the person that you really, really love. And they're not performing, or they're not the same person that you knew before. And so dealing with that in itself is hard. And so seeking help. So for myself, I sought help. But it's not everybody who wants
Where did you go for help?
I went for help with my parish priest.
Okay.
And so it was how this.
And that was the seed for this idea.
That was the seed for this idea.
Yeah. And Liz?
There was nothing when my husband was ill. My husband was ill for 10 years, and he died 5 years ago. So there was nothing, and no one talked about dementia, and no one knew about it, and it was just me one alone. I had to train my own caregivers. I had to do all of this by myself. So I'm very passionate about the fact that I've been blessed with the ability to help show people that there's ways to do things, and there's ways to go through this, and there's a lot of wrong ways to go through it, and I can show them all the wrong ways because I found all the wrong ways. But it was, when my husband got ill in 2004, people just didn't even really know the word dementia, and we were living at Kickocker, and it was very different. So I came from when there was nothing. And now I see other avenues, and I see other things coming up, and I'm excited and I'm encouraged, and I feel very honored to be able to maybe help other caregivers.
Do you think maybe one of the problems might be that caregivers actually don't have the time? You have to find someone to babysit, person sit, the person so do you think that can be an issue, that people just physically are constrained?
Yes, they are. And, particularly if there's not family members to help, or if there's family members that just won't help. And one of our speakers is going to be from a Caregivers, a home health agency, that will talk about, respite and bringing someone in, even if it's just for the day, because it's not cheap to have a full-time caregiver. It's really not cheap. And there's not facilities like abroad where you can, take someone to a day center. They don't have those kind of things. So hopefully we can find avenues together that will give them a little bit more time, because sometimes you just need to go get your hair done and go to the grocery store and just go sit in the parking lot and go, thank you, Jesus, I'm not by myself right now, So finding those things and finding that balance is really tough, particularly if you don't have family members that help.
Yeah. As you talk about that story, I imagine a person who may just potentially be completely overwhelmed with providing care for a loved one, and such specialized care and challenging in its own self. And I think these are the little things that we as a society can pay attention to. So if I have a family member who's perhaps overwhelmed with caring, that's taking care of mental health. That's saying, okay, you need a break for you. And conversations like that just don't happen.
No, they don't.
Yeah. Well, I have a friend who is a caregiver for her husband. And when I go and visit, what she expresses is, oh, it's so good to have some adult conversation. Because there is another adult there, but not someone with whom she can have an adult conversation.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely. So your support group is, you have your meetings so people who are watching will know, at St. Martin's?
At St. Martin's in the parish office.
Okay.
Every 2 weeks. We have a Facebook page, so we've got our schedule posted on our Facebook page of the upcoming events and the different topics that we'll be talking about. We're running 9 sessions, and then at the end of those 9 sessions we'll reevaluate and decide if we're going to repeat those or if we're going to go to a whole new set of 9 sessions depending on our attendees.
Yeah.
So we're hoping this is going to be long term. And then I've had some other doctors talk with me about the possibility of us branching out across the country, but I said let's let us get this going first.
And
we have to get ourselves settled first here in the city. But they're looking down the road as a really positive thing. So that's exciting.
So
and we also want people to know that even though we say 9 sessions, it's not late for you to step in, because each session it's a new topic.
Okay.
And so you can always learn.
Yeah.
It's never too late to join us and to learn.
Okay. And the Facebook page, what do people look for?
It's Caregivers Journey Support Group.
All right. And moving over to MHA and some of the activities that you guys are having, do we want to start off with Joyce's pet project? Right?
The speech competition is first.
Okay.
And that's this afternoon.
Yeah.
And the topic is suicide triggers and strategies for prevention.
Yeah.
And I know that you have attended some of them, and the quality of the speeches is really outstanding. So it's 1 o'clock at the Bliss. We're starting. Ministry of Health is going to do a small opening for World Mental Health Day, and then we'll have the speech competition.
Who's participating? High school, tertiary?
High schools.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
And we have some nice prizes. But anyone who would just like to come and hear these young people, it's really inspiring, and so it's open to anyone. That's 1 o'clock till about 3:30.
Yeah, and it's on the triggers of suicide.
Yes, and strategies for prevention.
Nice.
And so one student has the topic bullying, how bullying could be a suicide trigger, but what can you do about it? And another one is cyberbullying. So there's bullying, physical bullying, and cyberbullying. Another one is sexual orientation, how especially young people who are confused or unsure, or sure but
Fearful.
feeling fearful, that is a very serious trigger. And previous attempts are a suicide trigger. Yeah. Because you've almost crossed the line once, so it's easier to cross the line again. So it's not a cheerful topic, but I think it's something that needs to be spoken about. Yeah, and so that is this afternoon. And then Joyce is going to talk about...
This is our second annual Night of Being Homeless. This year it seems that it will be bigger and better. Memorial Park at 6. T-shirts, we don't have any available, so we are all sold out with our T-shirts.
But you can't be sold out of space because Memorial Park is big.
We have space.
This is the T-shirt.
And for us, we chose to put a slogan.
You didn't give the date.
Yeah. Oh, it's on Saturday night at 6, Memorial Park. 2 things we ask: that when you come and you're leaving, you leave with your box, because we don't want to have to be cleaning up after anyone. So let's do it right. Yeah. You got the box free, you could leave with it. Yeah. Also, we will have Omashanti there at 8 to do yoga with us. So come out, let's do some relaxing sessions before we actually go to sleep. And besides not having any more T-shirts, you could pay your $10, and there is always a space for everyone.
Yeah. What's the purpose behind the event?
The purpose behind the event is, 1, is to raise awareness. Yeah. And 2, it's a fundraiser, because we have to find ways to help keep our doors open. And this is something that I thought about like several years before I actually put it to the board. And so far it has been successful. Yeah. And so it's something that we want to keep doing annually. Yeah. And we also want the persons who participate to walk away with appreciation for what they have. Yeah. And think about the mentally challenged person who sleeps outside, who doesn't have access to the restrooms, the security, and all the amenities that we have at home.
Even the blanket that you might take out
plus the knowledge that you have a home to go back to.
Right. Yeah. And then last year you had, did people come out? What was it like?
Last year we had 110 persons who came out. This year we are looking forward to see beyond 110. And we have people who started it out and they got up and they went because they couldn't do it. Some are because of health issues. Some are just because that, you know what, there was a little drizzle that came down. And when I look around, I saw people going with their boxes. But they stayed until a little drizzle came down. And so
we have one school that's having their own Sleep It Out, Belize High School. And so, because we had suggested to schools that they could do that, so they're going to have it on their own campus.
At their school.
At their school. And of course, still give us the proceeds. So we encourage other schools for next year to organize the same kind of thing, because it's still supporting the idea, but not maybe a student wants to do it, but they can't go out by themselves.
Yeah. It's a more controlled environment for children.
So it's a controlled environment for children. So this year we do have one school that's taken us up on it, and next year we're hoping more schools will do that. And of course that can be countrywide, because homelessness is not just in Belize City. Yeah.
And also we're appealing to the businesses who have boxes. We're still in need of boxes, so you could come, drop them off at the center.
Or just phone us and we can pick them up.
Carna Vernon and to Bruce, 202-2511. Call us. We have some boxes. We'll get them and take them over to the center.
So you just show up to sleep at the Memorial Park?
You show up to sleep, you register, you pay your $10 to sleep.
But while it's in solidarity with the homeless, you will provide some amenities like security and bathrooms.
and bathrooms. This year we have almost 12 police officers who they bought shirts. The department bought shirts for them. We will also have some customs officers out there. They bought shirts also, and other individuals who bought their shirts and said that they probably won't sleep. They will just sit up and look at everything. And we have media houses who said that they will be out there throughout the night. So.
Awesome. All right. So that takes place this Saturday night.
This Saturday.
In Belize City.
You have plenty of time to recover because Monday's a holiday.
All right. And of course, the proceeds go towards the Welcome Resource Center.
And I must say, Marlene, when we started off, originally the center, it was only a hot meal and lunch. Now today we are at breakfast every day. You get your hot meal, and on Friday you get a package to go for the weekend. So
because you're not open on the weekend.
Because we're not open on the weekend, but it's only through these initiatives that we will be able to do more.
Nice. All right. Great.
And then the last event is the banquet.
Which is your signature event.
Annual banquet, and as I said earlier, the Michael Young family are our patrons. And this year we're going to have it at Caribbean Motors, the pretty glass building on the Northern Highway. And we have Chef Quilin, who is going to provide the food. And I think everyone knows that that's going to be good. We have Kenny G and the New Creation. We're selling tickets. I have some now. And it's $100. And although we're going to be sharing some of these difficult moments, it's also a time to get together and be thankful for what we have and be joyful, because we have to be joyful in life, in what we have. And so one of the things we do, it's Mental Health Association, but the funds are to support the Welcome Resource Center. And one of the things we always do is we have a table of people who come from Palm Center, and we have another table of participants and staff of the Welcome Resource Center. And a couple of years ago, someone said to Joyce, I thought they said that they were going to have people from Palm Center here. When are they? They're sitting at that table. You know, they don't have horns. They're not throwing food around.
They're not having
They're people. They love having an opportunity, and so this is part of the inclusion that we try to we try to promote.
And using your sales pitch, Miss Kathy, if you can't make it, you could always pay for a participant to go?
Absolutely, yes. And even if you can't pay the whole amount, you could pay half, and then someone else pays half. So yes, please. And if you have anything else, you can donate. And then the last thing, which is not really part of mental health, activities.
Yes, because you should be proud.
And I think that Kubola is making arrangements, but I've been laboring on a novel for more years than I like to think about. And I got it finished, and I actually got it edited 3, 4, 5 times. And Kubola is publishing it, and we're going to have the launch on the 22nd. Why it's relevant is because the major character is someone who has schizophrenia, but it's really how he is at the center of all kinds of other things that happen, and his illness and the connections people make because of him. And of course, proceeds, which you probably know, there's often not that much proceeds, but the proceeds are for the Welcome Resource Center, but we can discuss that at another time.
Excellent.
And on a lighter note, Marlene, Friday is our Fun Friday. So we have Titans coming in at the resource center on Friday.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, to do carnival and have fun with the participants at the center. That is also in aid of World Mental Health Day. But they couldn't do it today because we have all these activities, so we asked them to do it on our Fun Friday, so
which is tomorrow.
Which is tomorrow.
And people can always go volunteer, take clothing,
Yep.
take food.
Clothing, food, just volunteer to sit with our participants. They could hear different perspective and who knows, become their employer.
All right, great. Well, thank you all for being a part of the conversation this morning. We do appreciate it, and best of luck with all your individual initiatives.
Thank you too.
Thank you too.
We're going to go ahead and take a break, and when we come back, we're going to be getting the details of Japan Days. Please stay tuned.